Have you ever known someone who could make you feel deeply connected one day, then seem completely out of reach the next? One moment they are warm and close, and before you know it, they become quiet, distant, and impossible to read. It leaves you wondering, do they even care about me? But what if the person who appears the most emotionally detached is actually carrying the strongest feelings in silence? And what if there is one hidden sign that reveals everything they work so hard to keep buried? Welcome to Inside Avoidant. Today, you're about to discover something about avoidant psychology that most people never recognize. Once you understand this one pattern, you'll never interpret their behavior the same way again. Many people get avoidance completely wrong. They believe silence means they don't care. They assume distance is proof that love has disappeared. They think that if someone truly has feelings, they should naturally express them with consistency and ease. But avoidants don't fit that pattern. Because their greatest challenge isn't a lack of emotion, it's the intensity of it. Avoidants are not emotionally empty. In fact, they often experience emotions more deeply than people realize. The problem is that those emotions can become overwhelming very quickly. Instead of feeling comforting, emotional closeness can feel overpowering and difficult to control. As a relationship becomes more meaningful, something changes inside them. What feels like love and security to you may feel like pressure and vulnerability to them. They may genuinely enjoy being with you, miss you when you're gone, and think about you far more than they admit. Yet when those emotions become impossible to ignore, their first reaction is often to step away instead of moving closer. They aren't trying to lose you. They're trying to calm the emotional storm happening inside themselves. This reaction usually has deep roots. Many avoidants grew up believing that showing emotions wasn't safe. Maybe their feelings were dismissed, criticized, or ignored. Maybe they learned that being independent was the only way to protect themselves. Over time, they convinced themselves that needing someone meant becoming vulnerable, and vulnerability felt dangerous. So when real love begins to develop, they don't know how to stay comfortable with it. Opening up feels risky. Expressing emotions feels like exposing parts of themselves they spent years hiding. Instead of facing that discomfort, they instinctively shut down. You'll often notice this pattern in small moments. Sometimes they become open, caring, and emotionally present. During those moments, you catch a glimpse of what they're truly feeling. Then, without warning, they pull back. Their messages become shorter. They seem emotionally unavailable. They become difficult to reach. To someone on the outside, it looks inconsistent, but inside their mind, it feels like self-protection. They're trying to manage emotions that have become larger than what they believe they can safely handle. Many avoidants don't even fully understand their own emotions. They can miss someone deeply while convincing themselves they don't actually need them. They may care more than they ever admit, yet struggle to put those feelings into words. Every day they're caught between what their heart feels and what their mind allows them to express. That inner battle creates behavior that appears cold on the surface while hiding intense emotions underneath. That's why judging an avoidant only by what they do can be misleading. Silence doesn't always mean emptiness. Distance doesn't always mean they've stopped caring. Sometimes those behaviors are simply the only coping strategies they know, because they were never taught how to process overwhelming emotions in a healthy way. Of course, understanding this doesn't erase the pain their actions can cause, and it doesn't mean you should ignore your own emotional needs. But it does change how you interpret what you're experiencing. Instead of asking, why don't they feel anything, a better question is, why do they feel so much that they don't know what to do with it? Once you see that their struggle comes from emotional intensity rather than emotional absence, everything begins to make sense. What often looks like a lack of love is actually a fear of losing themselves inside it. One of the most common misunderstandings is believing that distance automatically means rejection. When an avoidant pulls away, it's easy to assume you've done something wrong, or that their feelings have suddenly disappeared. But more often than not, their need for space has very little to do with you. As emotional closeness grows, so does their sense of vulnerability. The stronger the connection becomes, the greater the risk of being hurt, misunderstood, or emotionally overwhelmed. To reduce that discomfort, they create distance. That space helps them feel grounded again. It gives them time to breathe, organize their thoughts, and quiet the emotional pressure building inside. From your perspective, it may seem like they're walking away from the relationship. From theirs, they're simply trying not to drown in emotions they don't know how to manage. That's why their behavior can seem so confusing. One day they're engaged, attentive, and emotionally available in their own quiet way. The next day, they respond less, withdraw completely, or disappear into silence. It feels as though someone flipped a switch, but in reality, that switch is their emotional defense system taking over. Most of the time, it's not planned, intentional, or manipulative. It's an automatic survival response they've learned over many years. What they're reacting to is an internal warning that says, this is getting too intense, too personal, too fast. The difficult part is that avoidants rarely explain what's happening inside them. They don't usually say, I'm overwhelmed and I need some space. Instead, they quietly pull away without any explanation, leaving the other person confused and searching for answers. When you're on the receiving end of that silence, it can feel deeply personal. Your mind naturally fills in the blanks, and most people assume the worst. But their need for distance isn't always a reflection of your worth or your place in their life. More often, it reflects the emotional limit they've reached at that moment. The harder you chase after them for reassurance, answers, or closeness, the more trapped they can feel. Pressure is exactly what they're trying to escape. When they feel cornered emotionally, their instinct is often to create even more distance, not because they don't care, but because they desperately need room to calm the emotions they don't know how to manage. This creates a painful cycle. One person reaches for connection while the other keeps stepping away. Both people end up feeling unheard, misunderstood, and emotionally exhausted. Understanding this pattern doesn't mean ignoring your own needs or excusing behavior that causes pain. It simply helps you recognize that their withdrawal isn't always a conscious rejection of you. In many cases, it's an automatic attempt to protect themselves from emotions that feel overwhelming. Once you begin seeing distance as self-protection instead of personal rejection, everything starts to look different. You stop blaming yourself for every change in their behavior and start recognizing the pattern for what it really is. That awareness brings clarity, and clarity allows you to respond with more confidence instead of reacting from fear. Understanding the reason behind someone's actions doesn't just change how you see them. It also helps you protect your own emotional well-being. One of the hardest experiences is connecting with someone who makes you feel valued, understood, and emotionally close, only to disappear without warning. It feels like the ground suddenly disappears beneath your feet. You replay every conversation, wondering what changed, what mistake you made, and whether any of it was genuine. For many avoidants, this pattern isn't random, and it isn't always intentional. It's often the result of an ongoing battle happening inside them. At the center of that struggle are two opposing desires. One part of them longs for closeness. They enjoy spending time with you, appreciate your attention, and may genuinely imagine building something deeper together. During those moments, they become more open, communicate more consistently, and allow you to see a softer side of them. Those moments are real because the feelings behind them are real. But as the connection grows stronger, another emotion begins to surface. Fear. Not necessarily fear of you, but fear of everything emotional closeness represents. They may worry about losing their independence, becoming emotionally dependent, or eventually getting hurt. These fears often appear automatically, without conscious thought. They simply experience an uncomfortable feeling that tells them they need space. Instead of sitting with that discomfort, they instinctively move away. Sometimes that withdrawal happens slowly, through delayed replies, less communication, and reduced effort. Other times it happens almost overnight. To you, it feels like the person you were growing close to suddenly vanished. Inside, however, they're struggling with two conflicting truths. They want the connection, but they're also frightened by how vulnerable that connection makes them feel. What makes this cycle so confusing is that it repeatedly creates both hope and uncertainty. Whenever they return, it feels like things are finally settling down. They may become warmer, more consistent, and more emotionally available. For a while, everything seems different. But unless they've learned healthier ways to handle vulnerability, the same pattern often repeats itself. As closeness increases, anxiety returns, and distance follows once again. It's important to recognize that this isn't always someone deliberately playing with your emotions. Many avoidants don't fully realize the cycle they're caught in. They simply know that when emotions become too intense, they feel the need to pull away. After enough time alone, those feelings begin resurfacing, drawing them back toward you. This isn't usually about manipulation. It's about lacking the emotional skills needed to maintain intimacy without feeling overwhelmed. For the person experiencing this cycle, it can become incredibly draining. You're constantly trying to adapt, searching for answers, holding on to the beautiful moments while bracing yourself for the painful ones. Eventually, you may find yourself living in uncertainty, waiting for the next emotional shift. That's why recognizing this pattern matters so much. Once you understand that this cycle comes from their unresolved fears, not from something you caused, you can make healthier decisions for yourself. Seeing the push and pull clearly doesn't mean accepting it forever. It means understanding it without getting trapped by it. And once you stop riding the emotional roller coaster, you can begin choosing the consistency, security, and peace you truly deserve. Another challenge with avoidance is that they rarely express what they're feeling in direct words. You may long to hear simple sentences like, "I miss you," "I care about you," or "I love you." Yet those words often remain unspoken. That silence doesn't always mean those emotions don't exist. For many avoidants, expressing deep feelings feels incredibly exposing. Saying those words out loud can feel like surrendering control, and that vulnerability is deeply uncomfortable. Instead of sharing emotions openly, they tend to process everything internally. They think about their feelings, analyze them repeatedly, and often convince themselves those emotions aren't as strong as they really are. Even when they desperately want to express something meaningful, an invisible barrier holds them back. Speaking those feelings aloud makes them feel permanent, real, and impossible to hide from if the relationship becomes painful. Because of that, their emotions often appear through quiet actions instead of obvious words. Small gestures, subtle moments, or seemingly ordinary behaviors may carry far more meaning than they ever openly admit. Sometimes they reach out after days or weeks of silence without ever explaining where they've been. They may remember little things you once mentioned, details you assumed they had forgotten. They may show concern by solving practical problems or quietly helping you instead of offering emotional words. To someone expecting open communication, these gestures can feel random or even confusing. But for many avoidants, this is the safest way they know how to express care without feeling emotionally exposed. The problem is that these quiet signals are easy to miss If you're waiting to hear direct reassurance, their silence can seem like proof that nothing is there. Over time, the gap between what you need to hear and what they're capable of saying can become painful. You may begin questioning your place in their life, even when their actions suggest you matter far more than they can comfortably admit.
Another reason communication feels so difficult is that avoidants often struggle to understand their own emotions. It's not only that they have trouble expressing them, they sometimes can't clearly identify them. They may feel drawn toward you while feeling anxious at the same time. They can miss you deeply, yet convince themselves they don't actually need you. That internal conflict makes honest communication difficult because they hesitate to promise or express something they fear they won't be able to sustain. Even when they do reveal their feelings, it's usually in a guarded way. They may minimize what they're saying, joke about it, or quickly change the subject afterward. It's their way of testing emotional safety without becoming completely vulnerable. Because of that, even a short emotional statement from them often carries far more meaning than it appears on the surface.
Recognizing this doesn't mean accepting poor communication forever. Every healthy relationship requires honesty and emotional openness. But it does help you separate genuine emotional difficulty from genuine indifference. Once you understand that difference, you stop relying only on what they fail to say and begin noticing what they quietly communicate through their actions. At the same time, you can honestly decide whether that level of communication is enough for your own emotional needs. Among all the behaviors avoidants display, one stands above the rest. It isn't found in their words because words are often the hardest part for them. It isn't found in perfect consistency because consistency is exactly what they struggle to maintain. Instead, the strongest clue appears in a simple pattern that repeats itself again and again. They come back. No matter how much distance they create or how long the silence lasts, they somehow find their way back into your life. Sometimes it's nothing more than a brief message, a reaction to your story, or a casual conversation starter. Other times they return wanting to reconnect as though no time has passed. That pattern leaves many people asking the same question. If they can leave so easily, why do they keep returning? The answer is important because someone who truly feels nothing usually doesn't come back. Genuine indifference rarely circles back to the same connection over and over again. But avoidants often feel an emotional pull they can't completely erase. They may bury it beneath distractions or convince themselves they don't need anyone, yet those feelings quietly remain beneath the surface until they eventually draw them back. What you're witnessing isn't emotional certainty, it's emotional conflict. Every return reflects the part of them that still longs for connection. The distance didn't eliminate their feelings, it simply postponed them. After enough time alone, they feel emotionally safer, their defenses soften, and reconnecting feels possible again. But that doesn't mean the underlying problem has disappeared. The same fears that caused them to leave are still present. As intimacy grows once more, those fears often return, and the familiar cycle begins again. They reconnect, things improve, hope returns. Then, slowly or suddenly, they create distance once more. That repeated cycle makes trust difficult because their presence never feels completely secure. It's important not to romanticize this pattern. Yes, returning often shows that the connection matters to them. It can be evidence of genuine feelings, but feelings alone are not enough to build a healthy relationship. Caring about someone and consistently showing up for them are two completely different things. Many people become trapped here. They see every return as proof that love will eventually overcome inconsistency. But unless the avoidant develops greater self-awareness and learns healthier ways to manage intimacy, the cycle usually continues. Every reunion brings hope, and every withdrawal brings the same uncertainty. Real clarity comes when you stop asking only whether they return and start asking something more important. Are they returning differently? Are they communicating better? Are they making greater effort? Are they becoming more emotionally available than before? Or are they simply repeating the same pattern? Coming back may reveal emotion, but staying, communicating, and growing reveal readiness. Once you understand that difference, you stop measuring love by how often they return. You begin measuring it by whether the relationship is becoming healthier over time. That shift protects you from remaining trapped in a cycle that feels meaningful but never truly moves forward. Eventually, your attention has to move away from constantly trying to understand them and back toward taking care of yourself. It's easy to spend endless hours analyzing every delayed reply, every disappearance, and every mixed signal because you know there are real emotions beneath their behavior. You begin believing that if you just understand them better, become more patient, or respond perfectly, everything will finally settle. But emotional security cannot be created by chasing someone who isn't yet capable of offering it. The urge to chase usually comes from fear. When they withdraw, you naturally want reassurance. You reach out more often, put in extra effort, make yourself constantly available, and sometimes ignore your own needs just to keep the connection alive. Unfortunately, that extra effort can feel overwhelming to an avoidant. Instead of bringing them closer, it often reinforces their need for more space. The harder you pursue, the stronger their instinct becomes to retreat. Recognizing this changes your response. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. You allow space, not as a strategy to make them miss you, but because your own emotional balance matters too. Rather than demanding immediate certainty, you begin watching what their actions consistently reveal over time. This doesn't mean becoming emotionally unavailable yourself. It means becoming calmer, more grounded, and less controlled by every change in their behavior. There's an important difference between understanding someone and sacrificing yourself for them. Understanding gives you compassion and perspective. It reminds you not to blame yourself for everything. But sacrificing yourself happens when you use that understanding to excuse a relationship that repeatedly leaves you feeling anxious, confused, or emotionally depleted. Explaining someone's behavior doesn't mean you have to accept it. Your own needs deserve equal respect. If consistency, honest communication, and emotional presence matter to you, those needs are completely valid. They aren't unrealistic, and they aren't asking for too much. An avoidant may genuinely struggle to provide those things, but that isn't something you can solve on their behalf. Lasting change has to come from their own willingness to grow. When you stop chasing, something valuable happens. You create room for yourself. You gain the space to think clearly, observe patterns without becoming emotionally overwhelmed, and decide what you're truly willing to accept. Instead of being carried by temporary highs and painful lows, you begin making decisions from a place of clarity and self-respect. That doesn't guarantee they'll change. Some may respond positively when the pressure disappears. Others may continue repeating the same cycle. But the goal was never to control their choices. The goal is to take back control of your own. Real emotional security isn't built by desperately holding on to someone whose presence constantly changes. It's built by knowing you won't lose yourself trying to hold everything together. In the end, understanding another person's struggles gives you wisdom. But respecting your own emotional needs gives you direction. You can have compassion for someone, recognize what they're battling internally, and still choose not to sacrifice your peace for a relationship that lacks stability. That is where your greatest strength begins, not in endlessly searching for answers from someone else, but in creating clarity, peace, and security within yourself.